Can you explain, like, how are you owned by them, or what is the relationship?
Yeah, so we're not owned by them at all. Binance.com doesn't own a single share of Binance US. We share a common founder, and historically, Binance US licensed the name and some technology from Binance.com. The way to think about it really is that a couple of years ago, it was clear that the world was segmenting into two basic kinds of markets. You had most of the world, which was still learning about crypto, didn't have crypto, licenses or requirements. And then you had an emerging part of the developed world that started putting crypto within a regulatory framework. We were founded precisely to be a regulatorily compliant licensed exchange. So we've got 43 U.S. states that allow us to trade in their borders based on licenses and other legal compliance mechanisms that we have. We'll eventually have all 50 state licenses. And then, of course, there are other parts of the world served by a different company. But other than licensing the name and licensing the technology, we operate independently. We have a separate board of directors. We have a separate ownership. And, you might think about us as essentially a Binance branded exchange that's doing our own business here. They're the biggest in the world. We're the eighth biggest in the world. Different companies.
All right. So we got the brand here in the U.S. Now, Brian. When we talk about the U.S. regulation or lack of it, and I'm curious as to your thoughts as to why it's been so slow to see something a little bit more formative out of the SEC and the other regulators here, whether it's setting up guardrails, whether it's approving ETFs. There just doesn't seem to be any real momentum, at least not I can see publicly.
But Romain, that is a great comment. And I think, honestly, it says more about the U.S. regulatory system than it says about crypto, to be honest. Part of it is, in this country, we set up a lot of different regulators and gave them each their share of turf. So the issue is, and I know this having run one of these agencies, there's a little bit of inherent turf conflict between, the Fed and the OCC, or the SEC and the CFTC. Everybody's trying to grab a little bit of turf. And because of that, it's hard to get clarity. If you look at a country like the United Kingdom, where there's basically a single regulator for the entire financial system, that's the Financial Conduct Authority, it's a lot easier to get clarity. Over here, you've got competition among agencies, there's overlap in their jurisdiction, and so at some level, it's tough to deal with. But I will say, we're not as far behind as people might think. I mean, at the end of the last administration, all of the major regulators, myself included, got together through the president's working group on financial markets and started providing some clarity on certain crypto assets like stablecoins. And I think that's an example of how our regulatory system can adapt if all the regulators work together.